Look at this shit. You can put your hand in. Like with this, it would raise it a lot. So that's the gun. Unfortunately, that's a very nice gun. These things. Oh, it's not. So that's about. This is a miniature cannon, like. And there's the mechanism to lift it. And it has some inscription, canon and bronze. X95. This is an interesting little gun. So it's about this big. I would say it's about 8 centimeters. 75 millimeter. Okay. There you have the data, how heavy, even the elevation angle. No recoil, but it has already breech loading. And I think it's bronze because it's like some brownie material. Yeesh, 1901. Essen. This is the elevation. Another bronze cannon. Nice. You can see that it's some brownie material. No recoil mechanism, just a trunnion. Really short trunnion. Huge wheels. But it has a primitive recoil with the trail, so the entire gun recoils here. And there is a interrupted screw breech. You can see there. but we don't have the breech plug, just a screw. This is another interesting cannon. You can see that it has grooves about this big. 87mm group. So you have Friedrich group, number 95, Essen, and there's a cylindrical breech. And this is where you would put the detonator. And this is how you would actually do the elevation. Amazing. So this is what you would have seen if you are the operator, the artilleryman of this gun. Very large. The Mecca of artillery. You see here huge guns. First World War vintage. Projector.
Они стояли просто в окопе, отстреливали. У них должен быть другой дробовик. Нет, смотрите. А он
So, these are shell casings. So you can see how gigantic they are, like 400mm. This is a sectioned gun. You can see the breech, the shell with the casing, and the barrel. So I put my hand here. This is like roughly 15 centimeters. 15 centimeter. Constructive detail that it has a mantle. Another miniature gun and a 37mm Frenchie gun, 108 kilo. It doesn't even have wheels, mind you. That's not what it looks like. No wheels, just a mega huge tripod. So it's a totally beautiful gun. Question is if the breech is still working. Yes. So this has an eccentric breech. So this has an eccentric breech as you see it. If you turn it around, you can see through the hole. And if I turn it, then I cover the hole. But this is obviously just a low pressure solution. And indeed, it's more like a grenade thrower, because if you look at the muzzle velocity is really small and the range is really small. And I think it's smooth bore. Here's the smooth bore. Now we have here an Italian short-barreled howitzer, but you can appreciate the barrel length. It's less than 2 meters the entire barrel. Gio Ansaldo, Genova, 1918. Sliding bridge. I wonder if the bridge is working, if the lever is sliding. You have a fairly rough elevation here. Actually, we have two elevations, a rough one and a smoother one. You can elevate from here, but also from here. And one is like it's giving you a quick elevation, and the other one is more fine and pretty solid. I mean, it's a very long trail. You can imagine the forces on it as pretty huge. And the spade is like, this is my foot, you know, just to give you a comparison. It's enormous. Let's see if the bridge is actually operable. Oh, yes, it operates, but you can see what the problem is. It is hitting this part. So in this position you cannot open the bridge. You have to lower the gun, lower the front of the gun. That means lift the bridge block of the gun, and then you can swing it open. A large bridge. What is it saying? Joe and Sardo cooking. And then you can see the bridge block sliding. And this is a small clever gun, really small. Yeah. It's like that. Nice barrel. Like my finger diameter. And this is an Austro-Hungarian gun. 80 millimeters, about a ton, manufactured by Skoda. So it's really low. I mean, the gun barrel is about waist level, so you can easily camouflage it. You can also easily move it by hand. Breech loader. There's a breech block that slides. There you have some inscription, 8 centimeter, 1915. The barrel itself, 353 kilos. This is the breech operating lever. So if I move it, the breech slides open and it exposes the barrel. And if I move it back, the breech swings closed. And this is just... It also has no traverse. It's all solid in the vertical. It only has elevation. I'm curious if the elevation... it's all stuck. This is the elevation handle. It goes down to this shaft, and there's some toothed wheel mechanism. And then you have this threaded bar that lifts it or lowers it. Deflection here as well. It's just hard to see how, because it's solidly built together with the axle. So it doesn't seem like it can swing. But graduation is there. It has a handle. Yeah, it is a clever gun because it's so small and it's easy to move and hide. This is a miniature gun, like even the shield is less than my waist level. And it's about 2 fingers going in. And you can see the little grooving. Yeah. Miniature gun, I would call it. It's a Japanese, really tiny gun, really lightweight. So you can see how tiny it is. Tiny little barrel, like a toy. But it's quite a clever gun as a... Let's see if the breech is working. Yes, it's working. So, and now you expose the barrel, and you can see into the barrel. You can see some Japanese inscriptions, and now it's closed. So you will drop the round vertically. Again, the 2 arch enemies, the German 77 and the French 75 of the time. You can see that the French has a much longer barrel than the German. The famous German universal cannon is the equivalent of what the French had in 75 millimeters. The Germans had in 77 millimeters. And by the way, here's the French 75. And they are like face to face, fittingly. It is a pretty rough industrial type cannon. So it's not nicely handmade, it's industrially made. This is the sliding guide, the barrel slides on top of that. Inside is hollow, is the recuperator. Horizontal breech block. Let's see if it... So I just have to see if there's a warden here, and if there is no warden, then I may be able to move a little bit the breech block. Yes, it works. Good. So there's Le Canon. It's amazing in what a good shape that all these breech blocks are in working conditions. And then here's the French one, and you recognize it by this, whatever this is. Let's hang down. So anytime you see this, it's the French 75. The material for the rail is pretty. So this is also sliding design. The barrel slides on it. See the 2 barrels. The German one is beefier, even allowing for the slightly 2mm larger caliber is still thicker. And this one is still thinner. Here you have the technical data. Very long range, 11 kilometers. There's a shell for it. Oh, you can see a detonator. So you could just grab it like this. And this is the obturation ring. So this was the French super weapon. They have a breech that if nobody's catching me, Let's try to move it. I think it's seized or it's on safety. You have here elevation, plus, près, plus loin. And you have here a sliding design whereby the entire gun can slide on its axle, and that's how you produce deflection. Amazing. Gun. This one. And you can see how small it is actually. So 15 centimeters. Oh. And that's how you change the elevation with those toothed gears. And I'm not sure if you can change the deflection. It's very solid in one. No deflection change, just elevation, and you have a finer change and a rougher change. It's amazing. Now, this is another French gun, 150 millimeters, but way bigger than the other one, French one. You can see the weight is also 3 tons, 300 kilo, and the range is 11,000 meters. So it's longer barrel, beefier barrel, very tall. So it's a very tall big gun. This is a proper long range howitzer, not some small. I'm curious if the breech block still works. Not a chance. The French elevation system. A toothed wheel section. It's some geared wheels. Some reduction, but no deflection on this one, just elevation. So this is some tiny little gun, 75 millimeters, which in itself is not so tiny, but you can see it has a thin barrel, so the thickness of the wall of the barrel is pretty thin. There's your recoil cylinder. The appearance of it is rather small. It has a beautiful breech block, Erhard number 6, Metallwaren, Maschinenfabrik Düsseldorf, Rheinisches System. So there's some proprietary breech. That's just, you have to press it like it would be a bicycle brake, and then it slides out. So German systems work even after more than a century. That's the thing. So you have a little gun. I think this is a genius gun. It seems a lot simpler than what the Germans actually fielded in great number, which is a 77 millimeter. This has a simpler look to it, simpler, smaller, for really the same caliber. Now this is another gun from the before World Wars. You can see these solid trunnions. This is totally solid, no recoil. It's huge and heavy. And I'm seeing some Russian inscriptions on it. More Russian inscriptions. It's a typical Russian gun. It's huge, it's brutish, but very simple. So I'm thinking it's a 203 millimeter. So an 8-inch huge gun. Just to give you an idea, this is the outside diameter by the bridge is just colossal, like a waist of a person. There's wrong because it's not 200 millimeters, it's 152 millimeter. But it has huge range for the time. Even today would be respectable. 14-kilometer range, 5-ton huge gun. Brutal elevation gear. The downside with this elevation gear is that you cannot aim precisely. It's just too rough. This is a pre-World War I design, but it was used in the First World War. This is the bunch system, so you can see how old it is. 120 millimeters, a lot of range, 12 kilometers. And pretty light as well, but obviously no recoil. Just a rigid trunnion, a lot of riveting and bolts to hold it all together. And an interrupted screw bridge. Nice. So you would just swing it in and then rotate it. And this is with an asbestos thing, provides the obturation. You can see the interrupted screw bridge. And then this plug would slide in and would be rotated. Yeah? So this plug would just slide inward into this, and then it would be rotated. This is again the debunch system. A simple gun with bridge loading. Renault tank. It's really small and it's really nice. Yeah? It's very compact. It gives you the impression of easy mobility, you know. So, like here, this is like waist high, so you can imagine that it's slightly taller than an average person. Slightly taller. You can see the plate thickness. Yeah, it's even thicker than the English tank was. So you can see why this became so popular. It's small, compact, gives you an idea of reliability. You know, the tracks are about waist high and it's not very tall, a little bit taller than a person. So you can get the idea that this will be easy to transport, to unload, upload. would come out of most ditches for most difficult situation. You could recover it easily. The FT-17. And you see that the plate again is even thicker than the English tank had it. Horizon guard. It has some shoulder guard. Pretty heavy doors. So you have here. So it gives you in totality a very, very compact, usable tank. You know, this you could put it into a rail on a larger truck to carry it. It's small but big enough. You do have a more proper piece of artillery, also muzzle loaded. You can see the shell is sticking out, but it has recoil buffers. It has elevation gear, so you could properly adjust the angle. It has some manufacturer plate. So I guess that's a cheap solution. So here you have also a more proper mortar with two buffers. So recoil, shell loaded in the muzzle. So these German ones are all the same elevation system. A very short barrel, and it says Rheinische Metallwarenmaschinenfabrik System Erhard. I believe it. It's very simple. Now this is a 21 centimeter Belgian mortar. So a 90 kilo shell, 3.5 kilometers away. And it's well before the war when they made it. And for that, it's pretty awesome. Eh? It has a pretty complicated elevation system, actually with reduction gears. So you would turn this, there would be a reduction on the bigger toothed wheel, and that would give you another reduction here. So you could make very precise angles with it. And it's gigantic. I mean, bigger than my hand. And they would have a breech, a sliding breech here. You can see it. But in this position, you would not be able to load them. So you would have to lower the front of the barrel. That would elevate the breech, the back, and then here would be a sliding breech. There's a channel for it, and there's the breech block itself that would slide horizontally. And here is the hole where you would load the shell. So you would have to raise the barrel to horizontal, load the shell, and then set the elevation. And you could actually make a deflection on it. Look at that. You could also do deflection on the same table. So pretty awesome. Quite elaborate. And this is like an early anti-aircraft gun, 77 millimeters. You can see that it has a pedestal mount, so they can rotate it, they can lift it. Also System Erhard. And that's what it looks like. So this company made a ton of guns for the Germans in the First World War. It's quite a nice contraption, to be honest. Here are a few data from it. 7.7 centimeter flak. Small, easy to manhandle. Already has recoil, all the gears on it for precise aiming, a brutal pedestal, and what else? High angle mount. Well, they say it's a flat gun, but because it cannot do deflection sideways, you can see how it's not a pedestal mount. Because it doesn't do deflection, I don't think that this is a flat gun. So that's what it looks like. It has a pretty long trail and quite a simple and brutish construction. So that's more like a high-angle field gun, like a mortar, howitzer, something like that. And that's a tiny German mortar, very tiny indeed. Not much to say, you can even turn it on a table. This is a pretty massive mortar, huge. You can see the projectile being loaded. It has a recoil, 2 recoil buffers. It's massive. It has proper elevation gear, so this is not a joke. Rheinische Metallware Maschinenfabrik Düsseldorf System Erhard. And it will be muzzle loaded, as you see. And this would be 25 centimeter schwere Minenwerfer. The range is pretty small, just big projectile. Big heavy mortar. You can see it throws a 100-kilo shell, 240 millimeter caliber, up to 2,000 meters. So there's an elevation system with a threaded rod. There's the trunnion where it's hinging. This would very probably be loaded at the muzzle, because at the back there is no breach at all. And it would also rotate, so it would do also azimuth. Now this is a 14 centimeter mortar, Austria-Hungary. So it's pretty beefy, but the barrel wall is thin. It has a rudimentary aiming system, as you can see, in that you turn this threaded thing and that lowers it or pulls it back. Very simple. Now this is a long barreled pneumatic gun. So air pressure would launch the projectile. And there you have the inscription, Canon Pneumatique. Let's see the brick solution. So the elevation would happen from here. This bar would slide down or up. Manufacturer Brandt et Willier Brunn. So the way I see it, this is a gas container and it's bolted there to a flange. And this, you would replace it when it would get empty. And you would drop the projector from the top, and then actually these two are releasing the barrel from the gas container. So from here downwards is the gas container, and this last piece up is the barrel itself, and this clamp and this hinge would hinge apart, and that's how you would load it. No, you would load it from the top, you would drop it. I'm just not seeing the valve that would release the gas. maybe here. This is a huge contraption. That's like a locomotive. I mean, that's your impression. It's huge. And it is a 270 millimeter, 16 ton. It has about a range of 7,900 meters, not very much, but the fat end. So it does look like a locomotive. So you can see the elevation gear. You can see this rod that they would shove down the barrel. It's a debunch breech. They have a little crane here, more like a derrick, but without a hoist. So we have here a British early tank. I don't know which model it is, but it's huge. It's big. Yeah. Like this is higher than my head. You can see a track tensioning device here. So this would travel back and forth and it would make the track tighter or looser. It's a Mark IV, 32 tons. And this is where it's gone, looks out. So it's essentially just a riveted box. This is relatively thin plating. You can see the thickness of the plate. I would say it's about 10 millimeters. It's about 10 millimeter plate. So, and you can look inside through this little hole, vision slit. There's the vision slit actually, and this is pistol port, so you can stick out your pistol and shoot outside. Here on this side, so this is what it looks like. Another weapon port. Probably here was a gun or a machine gun. Another port where you can peek out. And this is a door, an access door where you would access, where you would go in or out in this pontoon. And you would have your locking mechanism, obviously. You would have your peak hole. More holes to look out. There's a ball-mounted weapon mount that we have seen earlier. Obviously there's the engine right next to you. Huge room inside, must say. There's a munition rack.